Good day to you, STS students. Once again, I'm Sean Xavier Alquilita, and I'm proceeding to the next topic for the Science, Technology, and Society subject concerning about the history of science. Okay, so let us begin with the history of science. The recent history of man was divided into three periods. First one is the Stone Age, dating about millions of years ago. Then the Bronze Age, that was dating back 4000 BCE. No? When you say BCE, before Common Era, the dawn of the Western civilization is dating back to 200 BC. Now, when you say a Stone Age, there are two divisions in the Stone Age. The first one is the Paleolithic period. When you say Paleolithic period, it's an old Stone Age where the stones are used as the tools at the time. No? What's the difference between the Paleolithic and the Neolithic, which is the New Stone Age? In the New Stone Age, their tools, the stones which are their tools, were already being polished as compared to the old one, the Paleolithic period. No? The next one is the Bronze Age, where the tools from the Stone Age, the tools that they used is now already made of bronze or made of metal. And the next one is the dawn of the Western civilization. Okay, so let's proceed. Okay, so the dawn of our present Western civilization began in early Egypt, in ancient Babylonia and Chaldea in fourth and fifth millennia, no, before the Christian era. So from here, it can be followed through the present day. However, the great Eastern civilization was found in China as well as in India about the same time and even earlier than that. So the next one is from China. The Chinese people, no? They kept the records of the appearance of comets, the dates and the longest and the shortest days of equinoxes, and they also know how to predict the eclipses. So when you say equinox, that if you can notice that on today, October, November, December, we experience longer nights than days. But when February, March, April, and May comes in, we may experience here in our place in the Philippines that the days are longer than nights. So equinoxes from the word equal. So that is the time where the exact date where the night and daytime is pare-pareho, no? Just the same, no? And after that, we may experience longer nights, shorter days, or longer days than shorter nights. So that is what the Chinese has contributed something to science. Okay, and also they know how to predict eclipses, no? So both solar and lunar eclipse. Next. Okay, so the earliest evidence of interest in science came from the Chinese and Egyptians, but the first contribution to science came from the Greeks. Man was still in the New Stone Age, but about to enter the Bronze Age by learning how to harden a all too soft copper with an admixture of tin to work the resulting alloy into tools, weapons. Okay. His scientific development was well in advance, for he was producing sculpture, pottery, jewelry. It showed a skill of a high level. Okay, so that's one of the contributions of the Chinese and Egyptians at the time. So man was still a new stone age, but that was the time when the history was about to enter the Bronze Age. Moreover, Egyptians were also the ones who discovered gold. So, for the pharaohs, their coffin is made of gold, 24 karat gold, and so very heavy. Okay, next. Okay, so the next one is the Babylonians. So they recorded eclipses and they were able to predict the future eclipses. So they named the 12 divisions of the zodiacs, divided the northern sky into constellation, and gave their present names. No? Their priests recorded the planetary motions, especially those of the planet Venus. Geometry and mathematics were highly developed by these people. Now, aside from that, there were evidences about the there were evidences of the multiplication tables, tables of square and cubes. They also created the standards of measuring weight and length, and most of all, as well as time. So that these are the contributions of the ancient Babylonians to science at that time. The next one are the Egyptians. So Egyptians. So they did not develop their knowledge of the astronomy to the extent of the Babylonians. However, they devised a calendar into 365 days, and more interested in medicine rather than on astronomy. And with regards to architecture and engineering, uh, they're the ones who built the pyramids, no? Pyramids built for their own pharaohs. Pyramids and the papyri or papyrus. Papyri is the plural for that. Um, showed that they excelled in engineering as well as mathematical skills. Okay, next. So the Greeks. So let's move over to the Greeks. So they made their greatest contributions to fields of astronomy, mathematics, botany, physics, and medicine. Why? It's because Greeks are by nature, by their own history, Greeks are very, uh, uh, they try to question everything. No, that is why um, one of the contributions to philosophy started in Greece. No, one was also started in Greece. Greece is also one of the places where philosophy has started there. Now, because they try to question everything, especially the origin of the universe, where's the world came from. That is why we are going into that. Moreover, they relied on observation and logic rather than upon experimentation for their results. Yet the achievements of many of their scholars are truly remarkable, and one of them is Aristotle. Okay, so next, Greek astronomy. So let's start with Thales of Miletus. So the first Ionian philosopher made a careful observation of movements of the sun and marked out equinoxes as well as solstice. The other one is Pythagoras. So you know already this mathematician who developed or who devised a geometrical figure of c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared, and that is the Pythagorean theorem that his name was beard that bears his name even up until now. So he believed that the Earth was sphere or spherical in shape, just like a ball, no? And claimed that the Earth rotates on its axis once a day and revolves together with all other planets that revolve around the sun. Okay. The next one is Anaxagoras. So discovered the cause of phases of the moon. Observed that the moon have mountains, valleys, and plains. And the other one is Eudoxus of Cnides, so made an accurate observation of the movement of planets. So, um, and he developed a geocentric view, no, of the universe, where the Earth is the center of the universe, geocentric. And he explained how the planets move around the heavens and the time at which they would appear again. And the next one is one of the most remarkable philosopher in the Greek history, Aristotle. He was the greatest of the ancient scientists. One of his important contributions was his explanation on the meaning of the inductive method as well as deductive method, no? Of advancing knowledge. So he had a great interest in science, natural science. His writing includes discussions about biology, botany, astronomy, as well as physics. So, and that is Aristotle. So, let's move over to the history of physics and chemistry. So, um, let's start with Thales. He stated that water is the earth stuff of all things. So, that it means that the earth is made up of water, and it can be changed into a solid, so it can serve as an origin of all things. That's why it's an earth stuff. Next one is Anaximenes. um, Anaximenes found the primary materials in air. That is why air is the earth stuff of all things, not water, as contrary to Thales. No, that is why air is the primary structure, the primary element in the universe. And the third one is Heraclitus. So he stated that the fire is the most changing of all substances. So was the origin of all things. That is why for Heraclitus that you cannot step into the same river twice. So what is constant in the universe is change, and that is what he claimed in his writings, in the fragments of his writings. Next one is Empedocles of Acragas. Oh, he's a crazy guy. Mm. Okay, he gave air a place equal to fire, water, and earth. That is why he was the person, or is the philosopher who claimed that the universe is made up of four elements: the air, the fire, the water, and the earth. And all of these elements are formed because of love and strife. And love and strife. So the yin and yang in Eastern philosophy, no? Moreover, he is called a crazy guy. It's because he bragged in front of his students that he was a god. And moreover, um, and later on, one of his students stood up and said, "Okay, sir, prove to me that you are a god." So after that, they went on to a tour, field trip, a field trip to Mayon volcano. No, not Mayon. A field trip to a volcano in Etna. Mm. So they hiked towards the top of the volcano, and once they reached to the crater, mm, Empedocles told the students, "Okay, my dear students, I'll prove to you that I'm a god. I'll jump into this crater mm, filled with magma." Ooh, sige nga, challenge mo nga. And it did. He jumped into the crater in the center, the crater filled with magma, filled with hot magma. And what happened? He died. Hala, si Sir namatay. And that's the end of Empedocles' life. Yeah. So he's a crazy guy, no? Next one is Leucippus and Democritus. So these are the two people who contributed so much to chemistry, particularly that they claim that all things are made up of atoms. Mm. Atomism, the atomic theory. Mm. So Democritus assumed a void which the unchangeable atom of earth, air, water, and fire were in continual random movement. So these atoms had physical size, they also have their shape, which explain many of their properties. Okay, next. Oh, so one of the remarkable students of Aristotle, Alexander the Great, one of the youngest leaders in the history. You know? He carried with him the Greek civilization to all places where he visited, and the most famous of these settlements was Alexandria. So Alexandria was a scientific center of the world between 300 BCE even up unto 400 AD. So Alexander founded a great museum and library in Egypt. Okay, the next one. So in Alexandria, so astronomy, science in Alexandria. So the next one is Aristarchus. He gave the following contributions to science. He had an accurate understanding of the arrangement and movements of the solar system. So he discovered that the changing seasons are caused by the Earth's tilted axis. That is why, class, that you notice that why we have four seasons. Um, in the northern, for example, in December, you notice that during December, the places in the northern hemisphere experience experience winter, while the places in southern hemisphere, particularly Australia and New Zealand, experiences summer. It is because of the tilted axis. Why? It's because the ray of the sun in the southern hemisphere, the sun is more closer in the southern hemisphere rather than on the northern hemisphere. Okay? But when when April, May, or March, April, and May starts, um, things began to change. No, but things began to change in because in the northern hemisphere, the ray of the sun is more closer than the southern hemisphere. That is why we have summer in the northern hemisphere, but in the southern hemisphere, that time it's winter. Mm. So that's the idea there. Aristarchus calculated the sites and the distances of the sun and moon by pure deduction from observation. It's just only based on the observation that he can estimate the distance of the sun and the moon. Now, another thing here is Eratosthenes. No, he calculated the circumference of the Earth using his knowledge in geometry. Moreover, guys, Eratosthenes calculated the whole, no, the circumference of the Earth using the pegs. When you put the pegs there, pegs, um, you're going to record every day, no, the peg, the sunlight, as well as the shadows, no, you're going to record the shadows for 1 year, for 365 days. And after 365 days, you're going to compute everything, uh, all the data that is given to you based on the position of the sun um, through its shadow, so you can give an idea um, on how long, the circumference of the Earth is. Okay, so I'll show you the video how it works.
In the mid-20th century, we began launching satellites into space that would help us determine the exact circumference of the Earth, 40,030 kilometers. But over 2,000 years earlier in ancient Greece, a man arrived at nearly that exact same figure by putting a stick in the ground. That man was Eratosthenes, a Greek mathematician and the head of the Library of Alexandria. Eratosthenes had heard that in Syene, a city to the south of Alexandria, no vertical shadows were cast at noon on the summer solstice. The sun was directly overhead. He wondered if this were also true in Alexandria, so on June 21st he planted a stick vertically in the ground and waited to see if a shadow would be cast at noon. It turns out there was one, and it measured about 7 degrees. Now, if the sun's rays are coming in at the same angle at the same time of day, and a stick in Alexandria is casting a shadow while a stick in Syene is not, it must mean that the Earth's surface is curved. And Eratosthenes probably already knew that. The idea of a spherical Earth was floated by Pythagoras around 500 BC and validated by Aristotle a couple centuries later. If the Earth really was a sphere, Eratosthenes could use his observations to estimate the circumference of the entire planet. Since the difference in shadow length is 7 degrees between Alexandria and Syene, that means the two cities are 7 degrees apart on Earth's 360-degree surface. Eratosthenes hired a man to pace the distance between the two cities, and learned they were 5,000 stadia apart, which is about 800 kilometers. He could then use simple proportions to find the Earth's circumference. 7.2 degrees is 1/50th of 360 degrees, so 800 kilometers times 50 equals 40,000 kilometers. And just like that, a man 2,200 years ago found the circumference of the entire planet with just a stick and his brain.
Okay, so the next one, Hipparchus. So Hipparchus was the famous of all astronomers. No? Before the Christian era, he discovered the precession of the equinoxes. So he also studied the movement of the planets, sun, and moon and predicted eclipses. The next one is Claudius Ptolemy. So believed that the Earth was the center of the universe, so geocentric on his Ptolemaic theory. So he claimed that the planets are attached to a complicated system of moving circles. Okay, the next one is the funny guy, Archimedes. He proposed the laws concerning the floating bodies, hydraulic screws, lever, and pulley, and he contributed the concept of density and specific gravity. Um, there was one actually class. He was the person. He was the scientist, the ancient scientist who discovered the volume of a certain matter. But there was a challenge given to him. The king gave him a challenge to compute the volume of the king's crown. And he was only given 24 hours to solve the volume of the crown, or else he will be beheaded on the next day. So that was the time na wala siya tug. Okay. Um, feared for his life by looking only at the crown for only 24 hours. And when the 24 hours has elapsed without taking a shower, so wala. He gave up. He took a shower. Ano, before he took a shower, he immersed himself into a bathtub soap full of water, no? But when he lied there in his bathtub, he discovered that the water ni awas ang tubig. Therefore, diha niya nakuha ang volume. That's why it's what we call it displacement, no? Water displacement method. And that's Archimedes. No? The next one is Hero, discovered the first steam engine. And the other one is Ctesibius, made the water clocks, water pumps, and hydraulic pipe organ. Mm, okay. Okay. So in the Dark Ages, no, in the 4th century AD, at the time when the hordes of barbarians from the north overran the Roman Empire, destroying most of the intellectual activity. So resulting chaos lasted for 600 years. The Christian Church survived the ordeal, so the continued interest in astronomy and the revival in the interest in alchemy and medicine. Okay, so that was the time when the barbarians invaded the Roman Empire, and moreover, that was the 400 AD, no, and that was the time when the barbarians and even the Turks were trying to uh, invade not only the European Empire but even also to the Europe to Europe. So um, that was also the beginning, and that is also the beginning of the Middle Age. Okay, next one. So the Middle Age or the medieval period, two philosophers or even saints, no, that stood among the rest, Saint Albert the Great and his student Saint Thomas Aquinas. So they urged that knowledge can be obtained by two distinct channels of faith as well as natural reason, which have led into the complete separation of science and theology. But actually, guys, it's not a complete separation. That's what I've read Saint Thomas Aquinas books. The author of the textbook made a one. It's not a complete separation, but actually, they try to intertwine the relationship between science and theology. Mm. But it was the modern philosophers who tried to separate science and theology. But Saint Thomas Aquinas tried to intertwine between science and theology. It's because we use the science in order to understand our Christian faith. And that's what Saint Thomas Aquinas was trying to argue there in his writings. Okay, so to continue, um, for the Middle Ages, Roger Bacon so devoted his life to study the works of nature and suffered persecution in the cause of science. So he made several astronomical observations, explained the window, and moreover, he was also one of the philosophers during his time. Flavio Gioja so discovered a mariner's compass, which encouraged voyages. So it's use a compass or to determine your direction of the north, the south, the east, and the west. Next one is Johann Gutenberg. Um he invented a printing machine which started a propaganda and of enlightenment. So the first book that he imprinted was the Holy Bible. Mm. It was the Holy Bible is the first being printed in his printing machine, and it's called as it's a Gutenberg Bible. Okay, next. The next one is Nicholas Copernicus. Okay, so who theorized the heliocentric? So from Ptolemy, which is claimed as the Earth is the center of the universe, here comes Nicholas Copernicus, no? It's a Copernicus who claimed that it's not the Earth who's the center of the solar system, but actually it's the Sun, heliocentric. The next one is Johann Kepler proposed the laws of planetary motion. So, what is the basic law of the planetary motion? That according to Johann Kepler, that the laws of planetary motion explains that the planets that are more closer to the sun are those planets that revolves faster rather than those planets that are farther away from the sun. That is the law of planetary motion, and it is the same. It's evident, no, that one day or 1 year in Mercury is only 88 days. In Mercury, oh no, that's Mercury. In Venus is around 240 days. But for planet Earth, it's 365.25 days. That is for the planet Earth. That is one complete revolution. But don't you know, guys, that the one complete revolution of a Pluto is more than 90 days, 90 years, Earth years. That's the idea there. No? Now, the next one is Galileo Galilei. So he discovered the telescope, and the first astronomical object that he discovered in the telescope was the planet Jupiter. And according to his telescope, what he saw in the telescope, that there's a planet Jupiter surrounded by the four moons. So that's Galileo. Another one, guys, is Isaac Newton. So proposed the laws of motion and the laws of gravity, the three laws of motion, and also the law of the gravity. The next one is John Dalton. So the atomic theory. So develop. Actually, the first one who claimed that they made up of atoms was Leucippus and Democritus. But even the course of time, the theories about atoms is being developed until John Dalton developed the atomic theory. The other one is one of the most remarkable of all the modern scientists was Albert Einstein. No, developed the idea on the theory of relativity. So according to Einstein, that everything in the universe is relative. It's not identical. It's not absolute. Mm. If you imagine his energy, it's what I have explained to you that according to Albert Einstein that E energy is equal to mass times the square of the speed of light. So taking this object, a pen, this pen has a mass, but if this pen travels the square of the speed of light, that is energy. Mm. That's energy. Okay, so if I'm going to throw this pen to you, kung ako ni ilabay nimo, you'll get hit, and you'll once if you get hit, you get hurt. But how much more if this pen travels the square of the speed of light? Now, according to Einstein, that if the object travels the square of the speed of light, it's not only energy, but he can already bend time, space, as well as light. That is where dilation, the theory of dilation comes in. Mm, okay, so let's move further. In the space age, mm, in the year 1895, the atomic age started in physics and chemistry, while in 1957, Russians launched the Sputnik into orbit around the Earth and began the space age. And the first astronaut that's being sent there was Sino? It was Yuri Gagarin. Yeah. So he's the first man who orbit the Earth. Okay. And from there, from the atomic age, from the space age, um, there are many space explorations that involve. Up until now, there's already the latest news about the journey to Mars. And it was being presented to by the SpaceX project of Elon Musk. That since that, according to us, that we are already finding another planet to inhabit, and one of that planet, the nearest planet to inhabit, which is according to them, that is supposed to possible to give uh, 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 terrestrial life, is Mars. But the problem here in Mars is that Mars is one of the with regards to atmospheric conditions in Mars, it's so very violent. The storms in Mars are very stronger than that of the Earth. Mm. And moreover, your physiology, your body begins to shrink once if you're already in the outer space, and your bone density began to decrease, no? Mo na nga di gyud na magdugay ngadto kung tawa ka sa outer space, guys. And lastly, in Mars, once if you want to go to Mars, the journey to Mars will be signed with a waiver and also the agreement, the contract. Once if you want to go to Mars, you will never be able to return back to the planet Earth. That's the tragedy there. Yeah. So it's better to stay here na lang rather than to go to Mars. Okay. Okay, guys. So thanks for watching. And please don't forget to subscribe, to like and share this video. Thank you very much.